Hey everyone, it's Amanda here, and I just wanted to share my story. So, my story really began when I arrived in Mallorca. I came here with my husband, with the love of my life, and prior to that, I'd been working as a trauma nurse in Australia and all over the world, and very successfully. I had the perfect job. I carried a clipboard. I had a lot of responsibility. I'd done lots of grad dips and masters in nursing, and I'd already travelled the world. And I'd come home to rest. I had my pictures on the wall. I had a great beach house and my dog Bruno, and I was set. I was happy, and I created an amazing business in Australia that was going off in the oil and gas boom. And I made medical kits and gave medical training to the commercial sector in shipping, so to oil and gas and the customs, oil rigs and things like that. Some cruising boats, but more commercial, because I was also doing a lot of medic work in that field and living in the West, where there was a big scene there. Anyway, fell in love with the man of my life and moved around Australia. We drove around Australia for 2 years, and during that time I was planning to nurse as I went, I was going to do anyway when we got together. So I was going to take the winter to go and nurse in the outback and do more work with the Aboriginals and things. And that's a really great way to progress in your career as a nurse as well. Anyway, lo and behold, we settled in Western Australia, and before I knew it, I found a job. It took me a while to find the right environment there because we wanted to live near a kite beach. And before I knew it, we were actually living back in Mallorca. We'd moved to Spain. So I went from being a very highly qualified nurse with a lot of responsibility, running resus teams and really passionate about my job, to living in Mallorca where I was basically an illegal boat person. We were both Australians. It was hard to get residency at the time. In fact, everyone said it was impossible. We didn't have British passports, and I didn't have a work visa, and I didn't have the language. So I couldn't go and work at the local hospital. And I could go, back to Australia to work. And I basically had to reinvent myself. And I realized at that time, like, if anyone's been a nurse or found a profession that they're really passionate in, when you can't practice that, it's like your identity is ripped out of you and you're completely stripped away. And I was really confused because my whole life I'd always wanted to be a nurse. I'd always wanted to help people, and I'd always wanted to serve humanity on a greater level. And I found it really good to get outside myself and come from that aspect of service. And so, I went into a lot of depression and anxiety, and a lot of things came up from the past at that time, probably because I had too much time to think. And working in trauma and nursing, there's always someone worse off than you. And so I'd never had really taken the time to dive into my own stuff. And I found myself cleaning toilets and cooking on boats, doing races and things for the rich and famous, and even going and trying to cook for the rich and famous, not being a chef. There's nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't my forte. So a lot of confusion. As we were going off and doing lots of deliveries, and to keep myself from going absolutely crazy, I started to study nutrition and naturopathy, which I'd done as a hobby in the past. And then I already had a coaching business online from when we went around Australia, but I really dived into it and set up a wellness lab that was slightly illegal, and then just went nuts trying to make sure that we could get our residency here in Spain and become legal citizens, because we really realized we didn't want to work on boats. And flying in and out through the airports when you're an illegal immigrant is terrifying. And I couldn't deal with the uncertainty of life, because by this stage I was in my mid-30s, and I needed that stability. So I went all in and made sure I got my residency. So if anyone says they can't make it in a foreign country, I'm absolute proof that you can. So I felt anxious and depressed. I felt like my identity had been ripped from me. I had the external obstacles and challenges of being an illegal immigrant, of not being able to practice my profession, obviously the financial constraints at the same time. were really, you know, bearing down on me. And it was a constant question: do I go and work in Australia and just come back and spend time with my husband when I can, or do I want to be here and choose to be here with him and really make it work? And so during this time, I was picked up by a global organization working as a marine medical and global medical trainer. And I absolutely loved it. So I'd already had my own company doing this, which had I'd sold just as the financial recession and the big collapse was happening in the oil and gas industry in Australia. Um, and just over 10 years ago. And so what I did was I got really into this corporate job. I was a corporate medic and I was traveling the world. And I thought, oh, finally, I've got something I absolutely love. And it was great because I was able to do it through Australia and England while I was waiting to get my residency here. It was amazing, but I was still working for a massive organization, you know, with 18,000 employees, and I had to really fight to be noticed. And I had all these, you know, great ideas which were heard and implemented by the company, but because I wasn't legal in Spain, I still couldn't do it professionally. Now, during this time, I was often working on super yachts and on private jets and in luxury villas like Necker Island and private islands, doing big super yacht races, organising medical support at big ocean races, really big super yacht regattas, etc. And as I travelled the world, people in yachting and in the luxury industry kept saying to me, how did you find such a great job that combined sailing, my biggest love? I was also a professional sailor at the time, so getting to sail the world. So it wasn't that bad being an illegal immigrant. I was having a really great time, but you know, I was getting to a point in my life where I wanted to have a really solid profession because I'd traveled a lot when I was young. And so people kept asking me how I'd found this passion and how I was living the life of my dreams. And it was funny because I was thinking, well, I'm not. Like, this sucks. Like, I should be, you know, working in international health in Geneva or running a hospital in Victoria, Australia, or in London. Like, I'm not practicing what I really, really was born to do. So during this time as well, I started helping people get into the high end, getting into the luxury lifestyle industry. I was getting nurses that I knew from Outback Australia, jobs on surf charter boats, you know, surfing nurses, jobs traveling the world with, you know, Quicksilver and Roxy as the nurse and support staff. Doctors that I'd worked with, you know, as private doctors in Saudi and Oman, which, you know, living in the Middle East these days is amazing with loads of opportunities. Private chefs, you know, jobs with, you know, bands like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Iron Maiden and Queen and amazing things like that. And I was really good at connecting people and really good at spotting talent. And then I'd go back to Australia religiously to nurse every year, and I would always pick the ones that needed to travel, that, you know, needed to be globally minded, that you could see wanted to get out into the world. And I was like, have you thought about luxury, you know, the luxury industry? Have you thought about working on private jets as a nurse? Do you want to be, you know, and I'd been a nurse for the rich and famous for many years in my travels, for counts and countesses and rock stars and all sorts of things. So, you know, I kept connecting people, and I realized I had this talent for spotting talent and connecting people with the high end, and also really quickly coaching people to be able to work in that industry and make the most of it. And then I realized that I got my residency in Spain. I became a citizen. I set up a company. In fact, I set up two. I set up one with my husband, an engineering business, and another global extreme medicine training. And I was still working for the global organization. And I was like, starting to think, my God, I've set up this amazing life. Like, during all this anxiety and confusion and chaos, like, I transformed the chaos and confusion into clarity. And I could transform the anxiety into fucking alignment. And I realized I had a gift and I had a message to give to the world, that you have to unleash your inner wild. You have to work out why you've had these circumstances and how you can bring it in and give it to the world. And I realized that I was super passionate about seeing people thrive and taking on the world and living the life of their dreams. And I realized that, especially getting our residency here, you know, and especially setting up a company in a foreign country, especially being able to pivot and go back to nurse in the Middle East and Australia and London when, you know, I needed to top up hours or get cash injections, or position myself to be able to work on Necker Island and become, you know, one of the medical advisors for the Virgin Group. You know, I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. I was making these constant, you know, conscious decisions. But one day I looked at the scope of it and went, wow, I'm really proud of what I've achieved. And this is what I want to give the world. I want people to own their power. I want people to know that they can do whatever they want to do. I want people to not actually just, you know, cruise through life. I want people to live with passion and purpose. And through this, we can give back to the world. Through this, we can contribute more. Through this, we can solve the world's problems. And I think the biggest gift we can give the world is living with passion and purpose. And so that's my moral of the story, is to be the fully expressed version of yourself, is to, what I call, unleash your inner wild, is to live with purpose and live with passion and decide what it is you want and go for it, and just get crystal clear and laser focus on your vision, because I am a living testament that that will happen. And I'm so proud of what I get to do now. You know, I still have the Adventure Medicine Company. I'm still working actively and supporting my husband in his engineering company, which is going massive. And I get to work with cutting edge entrepreneurs that know they have a message, that want to get it out to the world. And it's not just entrepreneurs. I'm getting a lot of people that have come to me like old friends that have, you know, been in, you know, in really extreme conditions, that want to make a story or want to make a film and really want to get their message seen and heard by the world. And so it's super cool, and I'm really excited, and I'm so grateful that you're all here on my journey. And yeah, just make a decision and go all in. And you were born to live an extraordinary life.